Hello and welcome. Today we're looking at a story that, well, it really operates on two completely opposing tracks. It's difficult to process.
It is. On one track, you have this narrative of American artistic success.
Exactly. A woman who really defined a specific era of independent cinema and was, in late 2006, right on the verge of a massive mainstream breakthrough.
And then there's the other track, a procedural crime story.
A dark one. It involves a botched initial investigation, a controversial ruling of suicide, and a forensic puzzle that eventually uncovered a brutal homicide.
So we are examining the life, the work, and the death of Adrienne Shelly.
It's a case that really forces you to look at the fragility of momentum, doesn't it?
It does. She was 40 years old, she had a film that had just been accepted to Sundance, and she had a young daughter. The central tension here is that her career was truly peaking at the exact moment her life was ended.
And that ending was. It was not straightforward at all. It wasn't just a tragedy. It was a mystery at first. The authorities, they got it wrong.
They absolutely did. They looked at the scene and they saw one thing.
But the evidence, if you look close enough, it told a completely different story.
Yeah.
So our mission here is to sort of pull these threads apart. We're going to trace her path from being this very recognizable face in the 90s indie scene to becoming a writer and director of real consequence.
And we need to look at the specific forensic details of November 1st, 2006.
Yes, we do. We have to understand how a single sneaker print found in drywall dust changed an official suicide ruling into a full-blown murder investigation.
And from there, we'll examine the legal aftermath and, of course, the enduring legacy of her work, most notably the film Waitress.
To understand the loss, you really have to understand the person. Before she was a headline, she was a working artist.
She was born Adrienne Levine on June 24th, 1966, in Queens, New York.
Her family had a Russian-Jewish background. Her parents were Sheldon Levine and Elaine Langbaum, and she grew up mostly on Long Island.
Mm.
It's a familiar trajectory for a lot of creative people from New York, you know?
Growing up in the suburbs, looking toward the city as this beacon.
Right, this place of culture and opportunity. She had two brothers, so she grew up in a busy household. But the name she's known by, Adrienne Shelly, that wasn't on her birth certificate. She made a professional choice to change her surname.
And that change wasn't just about aesthetics or finding a more marketable stage name. It was a tribute.
It was. She chose Shelley to honor her late father, Sheldon.
Which suggests that her drive to create was, in some part, deeply linked to her family history and that memory.
She started that creative drive very, very early. We're not talking about someone who decided to act in college. She was performing at around age 10.
At Stage Door Manor Performing Arts Training Center.
And for anyone who follows theater, Stage Door Manor is significant. It's not just a summer camp. It's a serious training ground. It's where you go if you're a kid who is absolutely set on becoming a professional.
It indicates a very high level of discipline from a young age. By the time she was at Jericho High School in New York, she had already made her professional debut.
In a summer stock production of the musical Annie.
Which is quite an achievement for a high schooler.
After high school, she went to formalize her education. She enrolled Boston University, and this is a key detail that often gets overlooked, I think. She didn't major in acting.
No, her major was in film production.
Right. So she was already thinking about how movies were made, the whole process, not just how to be in them. The mechanics of storytelling were on her mind from the beginning.
She didn't finish the degree, though. She dropped out after her junior year. It seems the academic environment gave way to the practical need to just be there.
To move to Manhattan and pursue her career full-time.
And that move to Manhattan placed her in exactly the right spot at exactly the right time for a very specific movement in American cinema.
We're talking about the late 1980s, early 90s. The independent film scene was just exploding. It had a very specific flavor. It was intellectual, it was low budget, and it was intensely dialogue-driven.
And Adrienne Shelly became the face of a significant part of that movement, specifically through her collaboration with the director Hal Hartley.
This is often called her breakthrough. He cast her in his 1989 film The Unbelievable Truth, and then she followed that up right away with Trust in 1990.
And those films defined a certain indie aesthetic?
They really did. If you haven't seen them, it's hard to describe the tone, but Shelley's performance style was just essential to them. She had this incredible ability to deliver this deadpan, almost stylized dialogue, but still make the character feel vulnerable and real.
She wasn't just reciting lines, she was embodying this specific sort of indie film sweetheart archetype, but with a palpable intelligence behind her eyes.
The critical reception certainly validated that. Truss was nominated for the Grand Jury Prize at the Sundance Film Festival.
And Hartley's script for that film tied for the Waldo Salt Screenwriting Award. These weren't just fringe experiments, these were the films that were setting the entire conversation for independent cinema at the time.
But the trap for an actor who breaks through so specifically is that they can get pigeonholed. You become the quirky indie girl, and then the phone stops ringing for anything else.
Shelley seemed to work very consciously to avoid that. Throughout the 90s, she really expanded her resume.
She became a working character actor in the New York television ecosystem.
She appeared in all the requisite procedural dramas of the era. She had roles on Law and Order, Oz, and Homicide. Life on the Street.
On Homicide, she was in the episode A Mini Splendored Thing. And these roles, they required a totally different skill set than the work she did with Hartley.
Much more grounded, dramatic realism.
Exactly. And at the same time, she was grinding away in the theater world. She played major roles in over 24 off-Broadway plays, a lot of them at Manhattan's Workhouse Theater.
She was working constantly.
Constantly. And later in her acting career, in 2005, she was in the film Factotum with Matt Dillon. So she had this sustainable, very respectable career as an actor. But the shift that really defines the second half of her life is when she decided to move behind the camera.
Transitioning from actor to director is more common now, but in the 90s, it was a significant hurdle, particularly for women in the industry.
She began writing and directing her own material. Her first major credit in that dual role was the 1999 film, I'll Take You There. She also acted in it, alongside Ali Sheedy.
And it's important to note this was not a vanity project. The industry recognized her capability immediately.
Yes, she won the U.S. Comedy Arts Festival Film Discovery Jury Award in 2000 for that film.
And she also received international recognition. She won the prize of the city of Setúbal at the Festroia, which is the Troia International Film Festival in Portugal. She won that specifically for Best Director.
So people were seeing her as a director, not just an actress who directs. She was also embedding herself in the next generation of talent. She served as the creative director of the Missing Children Theater Company for 5 years. She taught acting
at one-on-one productions, and she led workshops at NYU. She was sharing the craft.
All of which brings us to the project that would become her ultimate legacy.
Waitress.
Waitress was her final work. She wrote the script while she was pregnant with her daughter, Sophie.
And that timing isn't a coincidence, is it? The themes of pregnancy, the fear of motherhood, the desire for escape, they are absolutely central to the narrative of that film.
They are the heart of the film.
She was a total auteur on this project. She wrote it, she directed it, she co-designed the sets, she designed the costumes, and she acted in it, playing the supporting character Dawn.
She built that entire world from the ground up.
And she attracted serious talent to it. Kerry Russell, Nathan Fillion, Cheryl Hines, Jeremy Sisto, and Andy Griffith. I mean, getting Andy Griffith for a low-budget indie is a real coup.
A tremendous sign of respect for the script. The film was finished, it was submitted to festivals, and shortly before November 2006, she got the news.
It was accepted into the 2007 Sundance Film Festival.
Which is the absolute pinnacle for an independent filmmaker.
Yeah.
It means distribution, it means eyes on your work, it meant her career was about to level up in a massive way.
So that's the context you have to hold. She is 40 years old, she has a 2-year-old daughter she adores, she has a happy marriage, and she has her film, going to Sundance.
She is at the absolute peak of her professional and personal life. And that brings us to November 1st, 2006.
This is the timeline of the incident itself. We're in Manhattan's West Village. Adrienne Shelly maintained an apartment in Abingdon Square that she used specifically as an office.
It was a place for her to write, to conduct business, to get away from the distractions of home life.
On the morning of November 1st, her husband, Andy Ostroy, dropped her off at this office at around 9:30 MBO.
Just a standard routine drop-off. But as the day went on, that routine broke. Shelley didn't check in. She didn't return calls.
Which was apparently very out of character for her.
Very. Ostroy became concerned, and by late afternoon, that concern turned into action. Yeah. Around 5:45 p.m., he went to the building, he got the doorman to go with him, and they entered the apartment.
And they found her in the bathroom.
The scene they walked into was just horrific. She was hanging from a shower rod in the bathtub with a bedsheet tied around her neck.
And the immediate reaction from the authorities, from the police who arrived on the scene, is the first major point of failure in this investigation.
They arrived, they saw the hanging, and they ruled it as suicide. Case closed, essentially.
But this is where you have to give immense credit to Andy Ostroy. In the midst of just unimaginable shock and grief, he was thinking critically.
He looked at that ruling and just said, no, that is not possible. And he wasn't just speaking from a place of denial. He had facts. He had reasons.
He pointed out that the front door to the apartment was unlocked.
Right. Why would a woman seeking privacy to end her life leave the door unlocked for anyone to walk in? It makes no sense.
He also pointed out that there was money missing from her wallet.
And beyond just the physical anomalies of the scene, there was the psychological profile. Ostroy argues she was incredibly happy. He kept saying she had the film, she had the baby.
He insisted she would never, ever leave her daughter motherless. It was a core part of who she was.
The police were, well, they were initially skeptical of his protests. The medical examiner had already ruled the cause of death as neck compression, which is consistent with hanging.
It fit their initial theory?
It did. But Ostroy wouldn't let it go. He kept pushing. And because he pushed, the police went back. They agreed to take a closer look at the bathroom. And that is when they found it.
The piece of evidence that turned the entire case around.
It was a forensic detail so small you could easily miss it if you weren't specifically looking for signs of homicide.
They found a sneaker print. It was in a thin layer of gypsum dust on the toilet seat right next to where she was found.
And we should explain that gypsum dust is basically construction dust. It's the white powder you get from drywall work.
There was construction happening in the building that day, in the apartment directly below hers. So this dust was present in the environment.
The print on the toilet was critical for two reasons. First, it matched a brand of sneaker that Adrienne Shelly did not own. That's a huge red flag.
But second, and perhaps even more damning, was the condition of Shelly's own shoes.
She wasn't wearing sneakers. And her shoes, which were on the floor of the bathroom, did not have any gypsum dust on them. None at all.
And this is the logic puzzle that solves the crime.
Exactly. If she had climbed onto that toilet to tie the sheet to the shower rod, her own shoes would have stepped in the dust. There would be dust on her shoes and her shoe print on the toilet.
The fact that the dust was there with the strange print in it, but her shoes were completely clean, it meant only one thing.
Someone else stood on that toilet. Someone else tied that knot.
This one piece of evidence completely shattered the suicide theory. The police began to look at the people in the building who would have had gypsum dust on their shoes.
Which pointed them directly to the construction crew working in the apartment downstairs.
From there, they identified a suspect, a man named Diego Pilco.
Pilco was a 19-year-old construction worker from Ecuador. He was arrested just 5 days later, on November 6th, 2006.
A background check revealed he was an undocumented immigrant who was living in the basement of a building owned by his employer.
When the police brought him in, Pilco confessed. But his confession is a complicated document because it changed. He didn't tell the truth at first.
No, he tried to craft a narrative that would minimize his own culpability. We can call this his noise defense.
In this first version of the story, Pilco claimed that Adrienne Shelly had come down to the apartment where he was working to complain about the construction noise.
He said he got angry and threw a hammer in her direction, not necessarily at her. He then claimed he was terrified of being deported if she called the police or filed a formal complaint.
He then claimed he followed her back up to her apartment. He stated that she slapped him at the door, and in retaliation, he punched her in the face.
In this version, he claimed that one punch caused her to fall, hit her head, and lose consciousness. He told police he thought he had killed her right there with that punch.
So his story was that the hanging was a cover-up. He claimed he dragged her to the bathroom and staged the hanging to make what he called an accidental killing look like a suicide.
But the medical evidence completely destroyed this story.
Completely. The autopsy did not support his account in any way. There was no head trauma.
If he had punched her hard enough to knock her unconscious and cause her to fall and hit her head, there would be significant bruising, swelling, perhaps internal bleeding in the brain. There was nothing.
And furthermore, the actual cause of death was neck compression. The medical examiner determined she was still alive when she was hanged.
And that is a chilling, crucial detail.
He didn't hang a corpse. He hanged a living woman. Confronted with the fact that his accident story didn't match the body, Pilco's story changed.
By the time the legal proceedings ramped up in 2008, we got the second version, the robbery version.
In this account, Pilco admitted that the motive was theft. He said he was returning to work after lunch and saw Shelly entering the building. He decided to follow her to rob her.
He waited on the landing, and when she entered her apartment, he slipped in through the door she had left open or unlocked.
He claimed he was trying to steal money from her purse when she caught him. She saw him and threatened to call the police. And that threat, the fear of the police, that's what triggered the violence.
He admitted to grabbing the phone from her. He covered her mouth to silence her screams. He then rendered her unconscious, not by a punch, but by choking her.
And while she was unconscious but still alive, he tied the bedsheet around her neck, dragged her to the bathroom, and staged the suicide to cover his tracks.
This version finally fit the evidence. It explained the missing money, the lack of head trauma, and why she was alive during the hanging.
It was a robbery turned into a murder to eliminate the only witness.
The legal handling of this case is also very interesting. Pilko was charged, but he did not go to a full jury trial for murder.
No, the prosecutors made a calculation. They were concerned that if they put him in front of a jury, he might revert back to his first story, the "she slapped me, it was an accident" narrative.
And there was a genuine fear that a jury might sympathize with that, or find enough reasonable doubt to convict him on a lesser charge, or perhaps not convict him on murder at all.
So, to guarantee a conviction and a significant prison sentence, they offered him a plea deal.
Pilko pleaded guilty to first-degree manslaughter.
The sentence was 25 years in prison, without the possibility of parole.
It was also stipulated that upon his release, he is scheduled for immediate deportation back to Ecuador.
The sentencing hearing was on March 13, 2008. Andy Ostroy gave a victim impact statement that was just incredibly powerful. He didn't mince words.
He addressed Pilko directly in the courtroom.
He called him a cold-blooded killer. He spoke about Adrienne's kindness, describing her as the most loving person, and he told Pilko that the family would never, ever forgive him.
That concluded the criminal case, but the legal fallout continued for years. Ostroy filed a civil lawsuit.
He sued the entities he believed were responsible for allowing Pilko to be in that building in the first place. This is a really important part of the story because it touches on accountability beyond the person who actually committed the violence.
He sued Bradford General Contractors, the firm that hired Pilko, and he also sued the owners and management of the building itself.
The lawsuit was based on the concept of negligence. The core argument was that if the contractor had not hired an undocumented worker with a questionable background, Adrienne Shelly would still be alive.
The suit alleged that the contractor had a vested interest in keeping police and immigration officials away from the work site, which led to a lack of proper supervision.
There were some very specific allegations in that suit, too. It was reported that Pilko owed a significant coyote debt money for being smuggled into the country, which could create desperation.
There was also testimony from a neighbor who said that Pilko's behavior, his staring, had made them uncomfortable. The argument was that the employer should have known he was a potential risk.
However, the civil court did not agree with that argument.
No. On July 7, 2011, Judge Louis York dismissed the lawsuit entirely.
And the legal reasoning behind this can be frustrating for people outside the legal profession to understand. It turned on the concept of foreseeability.
The judge ruled that the contractor could not be held liable for what he called a vicious crime because there was no evidence that they had any reason to believe Pilko was specifically dangerous.
In the eyes of the law, unless the employer knew he had a history of violence or that he posed a specific foreseeable threat, they can't be held vicariously liable for his independent criminal actions.
The fact that he was undocumented or that he owed a debt was not considered sufficient legal proof that he was a foreseeable violent threat to a tenant.
So the lawsuit was dismissed. All the legal doors were closed. But while this immense tragedy and all this legal maneuvering was happening, the art that Adrienne Shelly created, it was taking on a life of its own.
We have to look at the posthumous phenomenon of Waitress.
It's so rare for a film to succeed under these kinds of tragic circumstances without it feeling exploitative. But Waitress succeeded entirely on its own merits.
It premiered at Sundance in 2007, just a few months after she died.
And the response was overwhelming. It wasn't just sentimental praise, it was commercial. Fox Searchlight Pictures bought the distribution rights right there at the festival for a reported $4 to $5 million.
That's a huge number for a small independent film.
And it paid off for them. The film went on to gross over $19 million at the box office. To this day, it holds a 90% fresh rating on Rotten Tomatoes.
It proved that Shelly was exactly what she thought she was, a filmmaker with a unique voice that could resonate with a massive audience.
The awards recognition was extensive. The Newport Beach Film Festival gave it the Audience Award. Nathan Fillion won an acting award there. The Sarasota Film Festival awarded it the Jury Prize.
The Southeastern Film Critics Association gave it the Wyatt Award. It was also nominated for a Humanitas Prize and, very importantly, an Independent Spirit Award for Best Screenplay.
But the story of Waitress extends far beyond just that film. It was adapted into a Broadway musical, which is an incredible second life for an indie script.
The creative team they assembled for the musical was absolutely top tier. Sarah Beret wrote the music and lyrics.
Jesse Nelson wrote the book, and the great Diane Paulus directed it. It opened at the American Repertory Theater at Harvard in 2015 and then moved to Broadway in April 2016.
And it was a massive hit. It ran on Broadway until January of 2020.
It played 33 previews and 1,544 regular performances.
Which means that millions of people who maybe never even saw the original indie film now know the story of Waitress, and, by extension, they know the story of Adrienne Shelly.
And her husband, Andy Ostroy, has worked tirelessly to ensure that her name isn't just associated with the past, but with the future of filmmaking.
He established the Adrienne Shelly Foundation.
The foundation is a nonprofit dedicated to supporting women filmmakers. This is a direct continuation of Shelly's own struggle and success.
And it partners with major institutions, NYU, Columbia University, the Sundance Institute, the Tribeca Film Institute. It's a serious organization.
Yeah, when you look at who they've supported, the impact is just undeniable. They are finding people who go on to change the industry. Cynthia Wade is a perfect example.
Cynthia Wade won the 2008 Academy Award for her film Freeheld. That was a documentary short, and it was funded in part by the Adrienne Shelly Foundation.
And perhaps the most famous recipient of a grant is Chloe Zhao.
Chloe Zhao received an early short film grant from the foundation long before she was a household name. She, of course, went on to direct Nomadland.
And became only the second woman in history to win the Academy Award for Best Director.
It demonstrates that the foundation is identifying real visionary talent at the earliest, most crucial stages of their careers.
There are other ways her name is kept alive, too. The Women Film Critics Circle presents an annual Adrienne Shelly Award to films that oppose violence against women.
And physically, in the city she loved, there's the Adrienne Shelly Garden.
It was dedicated in 2009 in Abingdon Square Park. It's situated directly facing the building where she worked and where she died.
A permanent memorial right there in the neighborhood where she lived and created.
There have also been documentaries and dramatizations. HBO released a documentary in 2021 titled Simply Adrienne, which was directed by Andy Ostroy.
It's a very difficult watch, but an essential one. It includes a conversation where Ostroy actually travels to the prison to confront Diego Pilco face to face.
Her case has also been covered in series like Law & Order, in the episode Melting Pot, and in true crime shows like The Perfect Murder and New York Homicide.
It's a story that keeps being told because it has so many layers.
It really does. It's a story of artistic triumph, of a justice system that very nearly failed, and of a legacy that just refused to fade away. Adrienne Shelly once described herself as an optimistic agnostic. I think that's a beautiful way to view the world.
It is.
And there's one final detail in the film Waitress that always gets me.
The cameo at the end?
Yes. At the very, very end of the film, you see a little girl, a toddler. That's Sophie, Adrienne's daughter. She was only 2 years old when her mother was killed.
And seeing her in the film, it's a poignant reminder of what was lost, but also, in a way, of what survives.
It connects the artist, the mother, and the work, all in one final frame.
It does.
It's a life that was cut short, but a voice that is, without a doubt, still being heard. Thanks for listening.